What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Camper Report. Trey Lance is a Cowboy. We're going to break it all down. We're going to break down how much of a debacle it is, or I don't know if that's the right word, but how much of a screw up it is that the 49ers drafted him and how just that whole situation went completely south. And then we're going to talk, obviously, Kyle Shanahan, have to talk the man, the myth, the legend, Kyle Shanahan, the man that we are all furious at right now. And but today on the show, we've got an older guest, my first guest, and I mean, it's Amin. You guys all know him if you have watched the show for a little while, but it has been a while. So how are you doing, Amin? And maybe, I guess, promote your social media handles. I know you haven't been on YouTube for a while, but just promote yourself, I guess, a little bit.
I'm doing good. Appreciate the invite. Obviously, yes, I remember doing this like almost years ago. You were my first invite. I reached out to you
Yeah.
on email. I was like, "Yo, Ben, you want to do this show?" I saw him on the cone phone. But man, it's been a
Mm-hmm.
while. But yes, Twitter, YouTube, I mean the Dream 13. YouTube, I mean the Dream. I haven't been posting much, but you might see me from time to time on other people's channels. But hopefully, trying to get back to it soon. But yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, let's get right into it because this is going to be a jam-packed show. So everyone, hold on to your horses. Well, hold on to your seats because I'm going to drop some hot takes. I don't know about you, but Trey Lance is gone. Um, what are your thoughts on this? And I know that we both tuned in to kind of Grant Cohn's show. We both called in today. And so, what is your kind of viewpoint on how badly the Niners messed this up? Because I, I could think of a million different ways on how the Niners just did wrong by Trey Lance and just completely wasted 3 years. So go ahead, take it away.
I mean, obviously, yesterday with the whole trade, especially him going to the Cowboys, I mean, it hurt a little bit, right? Like, I didn't know how to feel at first. But when you think about it, like, after obviously Sam Darnold being brought in and everything that went on, and obviously him being announced as quarterback 2 this week, I kind of expected him to be gone. I expected him to be gone, even though what John Lynch said on KNBR that, oh, most likely it's a possibility that he's staying. I didn't really buy that because I honestly thought after Sam Darnold was announced as quarterback 2, or after Trey found out, Trey probably asked out and he wanted to trade out, and that's what Schefter came out and said last night, that Trey wanted out on Wednesday night, and he wanted out, and the Niners ended up getting a deal done with the Cowboys on Friday. My issue with the Trey Lance situation is I just feel like with those picks the Niners used in order to move up and to get Trey Lance, I mean, when you look at this team, and everybody loves to use this word, that this is a Super Bowl team. We have a Super Bowl window, and this team is a win now team. And you look pre-draft, right? Everybody's mocking Mac Jones to the Niners and Mac Jones to the Niners. But if you really look at it, the one guy in Trey Lance, he was the biggest project in that draft. Everybody said he has tremendous upside, but he has the least amount of experience. He plays at a D2 school. He plays at the FBS level, FCS level, and he needs the most reps, and he's an unexperienced guy, right? When the
Mm-hmm.
Niners went out and they drafted Trey Lance, right, with those picks. And the issue is, if you're a win now team and you have a quarterback that's super unexperienced, that needs those reps, that needs to learn, that needs to grow, that didn't play at a D1 school, that played at a D2 school, and you're a win now team, I don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily know how you would expect that to work, right? Because even in 2021, hypothetically, or 2022, which was his first year until he got hurt, even that year, there would have been some ups and downs with Trey Lance. It wouldn't have been a perfect, season with Trey Lance under center. With those picks, what the Niners honestly should have done was maybe went out and got a Matthew Stafford, who the Rams traded for and ended up winning a Super Bowl with. If you have those picks, you use it to get a quarterback that you can win now with, especially if you're a win now team. You go out and get a veteran that you can win with, hypothetically. You don't go out and get a project
Mm-hmm.
that needs development, that needs reps, that needs time in order to, be able to get adjusted to the NFL system and get adjusted to the NFL level. So that's my issue with how they messed up this whole, like, how the Niners messed up this whole Trey Lance pick. And obviously you called into Grant, and I called into Grant earlier this morning. But like, even Justin Fields is more athletically gifted. He's faster. You might say, he's more shiftier. But the thing about Justin Fields also, he kind of has some similar tendencies to Trey Lance, where he misses open guys. He's not the best.
Hmm.
He's not the best passer of the football. And I'm not gonna lie, but Justin Fields probably would be in the same predicament. So either way, whichever quarterback that you ended up drafting would probably be in the same scenario as it is now. So I don't necessarily think Trey Lance is a bad player. I don't think he's a bust. I think it's unfair and unjust to call him a bust. But I do think that the Niners, instead of using those 3 first-round picks in order to trade up and go get Trey Lance or Justin Fields, if you're a win now team, what they really should have done is get a quarterback that you can win now with.
Hmm. Well, and I completely agree. The thing is like they didn't. We all know that it's becoming more and more apparent that they didn't look that much into Trey Lance. They thought he was a running quarterback. He wasn't really a running quarterback. If you wanted a running quarterback with experience, Justin Fields is the whole package, which I don't think Justin Fields would have succeeded as much as he is right now on the Bears if he were on the Niners. It's just not the Niners system. I just don't think I wouldn't have seen him as a fit. But the Niners were like, Trey Lance is a runner who can also fit the 49ers system. But they didn't look enough because you were talking about FCS, right? And it's not like a top league, I guess. I think it's D2 or whatever. But when you're playing against smaller schools as North Dakota State, like when you're watching a guy who is playing against smaller schools, you have to look into him deeper because those smaller schools are nothing compared to the NFL. So if they thought he was a runner in college, yeah, he might have been a runner in college, but the college that he was playing at won't translate to the NFL because he's playing smaller competition. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's just they didn't, and we know that he wasn't their first option. They didn't do their due diligence because they tried to go after Stafford and Rodgers, and I think they could have gotten either of those guys, but I think Stafford was like I don't think they went after Stafford especially Rodgers. They didn't go after Rodgers at the right time. Like they went after him like after they traded up to number 3. They should have tried to go after Rodgers. Like they went after Matthew Stafford, then they pivoted and say, we'll trade up to 3, and then they went for Rodgers. I think they should have went Stafford, Rodgers, and then Trey Lance or whoever at number 3, but they didn't do that. And that was, I think, their biggest mess up on their part. So that's just kind of what I see there. And the other thing is like, a lot of people want to paint this picture. Like I was talking to a Cowboys fan who I'm really good friends with, Michael Davis, shout out to him. But a lot of people want to paint this picture of, Trey Lance, we haven't seen a lot of improvement. But in the last preseason game, I think we have seen a miles amounts of improvement. A lot of times last year, you see him play, and when he would get under pressure, he wouldn't scan the field. He wouldn't roll out and keep looking downfield. He would just roll out and run or whatever. He was a lot more skittish. This year, it's like that preseason game against the Broncos, there was a few times where he got under pressure, he stayed calm, and he delivered a dart over the middle. So he's gotten more accurate. The Cowboys got a major steal because these little increments of improvement that he has made is being so overlooked. It's the most underrated, like nobody sees it, but true Niner fans who do look at the film do see it. But the Cowboys probably look at his film and say, none of the league is talking about this, but this guy in front of everyone's eyes is improving, and nobody's talking about it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the thing about it is, I think it's a little bit unfair to call Trey Lance a bust. And like you mentioned, you said it perfectly, right? You look at the differences in where he's improved this year, right? In that Broncos game, you saw the improvement. Now the Raiders game was obviously a little bit skittish. There were some good things and some bad things.
Yeah.
But in that Broncos game, he looked way better. And as the game went on, he looked more comfortable. And that's one thing that you notice with Trey Lance is as the game progresses, the more drives that he gets, the more snaps that he gets, the better that he gets. The thing about Trey Lance is that he really hasn't had the opportunity. My question is, like, what I always think about is, with Sam Darnold and this whole Trey Lance situation, obviously I didn't think there was a chance that he beats out Brock Purdy because the team loves Brock Purdy. Kyle raves about Brock Purdy. He loves Brock Purdy. He speaks very highly of Brock Purdy. So I thought there was no chance of him beating out Brock Purdy. Even if he was flawless, even if he didn't throw an interception, even if he was perfect. I didn't really think there was a possibility of him beating out Brock Purdy because the teammates love Brock Purdy, the management love Brock Purdy, the coaches love Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy has shown under this offense and under this system that he could win. But with the Sam Darnold situation, I feel like if Trey Lance last year was your quarterback number one going into the season, and then he got hurt, why this year is he quarterback 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't because I don't really think it's because he got outplayed. I don't think he got outplayed. And watching the tape outside of the Raiders game, that's probably the only game that you could say, you know what, Sam Darnold was better in this game than Trey Lance. It's not by a lot, but he was
But
definitely.
also, Sam Darnold didn't get as many reps in that game,
That's
so
true.
like he might
That's
have
true.
done
Yeah,
worse if he would have
yeah.
gotten the same amount. Anyways, go
But
ahead.
yeah, but that's the only game that you could look at and say, you know what, he did better. Like it might, depending on who the person is, might say it's this much better, that much better, but you could definitely say he was better than Trey Lance. But if Trey Lance was your quarterback 1 going into the season in 2022, there's no way that he's quarterback 3. There's no way he got worse, right? Like there's no way he got that much worse. He obviously worked on his mechanics. And there was some things that you saw in game, right? Because I'm not at the practices, so I can't really comment on the practices. But in game, watching him do things that he didn't do last year, and he was your quarterback 1 last year. So there's no way when people say, you know what, Trey Lance is not better than Sam Darnold, like, and he got beat out by Sam Darnold. No, I don't think he got beat out by Sam Darnold, right? I just don't think it was really a competition because if one guy was your quarterback 1 going into the year prior, and then the year after, which he got better and improved, and you saw it in game, there's no way he's your quarterback 3. Like that doesn't really add up, right? So I don't really think he got a fair competition, and I don't really think he got a fair opportunity to really compete. Even though as much as Kyle and all those guys said, you know, he got a fair opportunity. I think ever since they signed Sam Darnold, I think that was it. I think once they signed Sam Darnold, that most likely he was brought in to be the backup, and Trey Lance was brought in to be quarterback 3. And once Trey Lance found out officially that he was quarterback 3, which Schefter kind of confirmed a couple of days ago, yesterday night, that he demanded a trade and he wanted out. And now he's a Dallas Cowboy. And honestly, the Cowboys got a hell of a player. They got a guy. Like, I mean, like, yes,
It
it
makes me
hurt.
sick.
It sucks, right? Because honestly, I'm not going to lie. I could see
The Cowboys?
Exactly,
Is
right?
that the team that was offering the most?
The Bills also made an offer to the Niners, but I'm
Yeah.
actually happy that, in a way, right? Like as a Niners fan, I hate that he went to the Cowboys, right? Because I'm a huge Trey Lance fan, but him going to the Cowboys, I'm like, frick the Cowboys. I can't stand the Cowboys. I hate the Cowboys. But I mean, compared to the Bills, who also made an offer for Trey Lance, I would much like which place is he going to get an opportunity to actually compete and actually have a chance to be a starter down the line? It's most likely the Cowboys, which Dak Prescott next year has like 59.5. He takes up 59.5 million of the Cowboys cap next year. Like his salary is really, really high next year. If he doesn't buck up and really, really play well this year,
Yeah.
and like make a playoff run and actually plays like an elite quarterback, like the way that he's getting paid, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, you know what, hey, Dak, we're moving off of you. Your contract and salary is really high next year, and we're going to give Trey Lance or Cooper Crush an opportunity to go out there and compete. So the Cowboys, honestly, I think they got a hell of a player in Trey Lance who's unknown, who needs reps, and who needs opportunities. And I could see potentially down the line, maybe a Trey Lance gets the opportunity and he seizes the moment. And, who knows, a couple of years from now, we could be seeing a potential Brock Purdy, Trey Lance NFC Championship game, Cowboys versus Niners.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue. You probably touched on it a little bit. Do you think Trey succeeds in Dallas? What's the earliest he potentially starts? I mean, I saw a guy today talking about, how the 49ers, the Cowboys really are what Trey Lance needed in the 49ers. They need a good offensive line, which I don't know. That Cowboys offensive line might not be good for much longer because it's old. It's old. But for right now, it's a decent offensive line. He has a good receiver, good running back, good defense. I think it's going to be very hard for him not to succeed in Dallas. Now, even though a lot of people like to say, Mike McCarthy developed Aaron Rodgers, that could have been a lot of, that I don't know if Mike McCarthy was can take complete credit for developing Aaron Rodgers. It could be, some of maybe the offensive coordinator or the quarterback coach at the time or people that he was working with. So I'm not ready to say that Mike McCarthy is going to develop Trey Lance the way he needs to be developed. But it is interesting because do they make him the third string? I mean, Cooper Rush has proven that he can do a lot, but hey, if Dak tends to get injured quite a bit for at least a few, he hasn't had really a healthy season. I mean, last year he was out for a few weeks as well. So I mean, Dak goes down, and then Cooper Rush. I mean, if Cooper Rush plays well, I guess you stick with him. But Trey Lance could honestly get playing time this year. And you were talking about Dak's contract. I mean, I think the Cowboys, it's just interesting because the Cowboys are also kind of a win now team. And so did they want to give Trey Lance a chance next season? Did my question is like, did Trey Lance go to the 49ers 2.0? Because I don't know.
I mean, in this scenario, it's kind of a tricky question, right? Because it's all based off Dak Prescott, number one, and his like situation with the
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys and whether he plays well or not. And it also depends on obviously if Trey Lance is able to get the opportunity, and that's also based off of if Dak plays well or not. I could see him. I don't know about necessarily this year. I feel like this year, I feel like he should focus on learning the playbook and
Yeah.
getting in there and trying to learn as much as the offense as he possibly can. Going into the season, I think for the first majority of the first couple of weeks, even if Dak Prescott gets hurt, I think Cooper Rush is most likely quarterback too because he's been in the system so long that he really knows the system really well. And you saw him come in last year and beat teams. I think he almost like I don't know if they lost the Eagles. I think they did lost to the Eagles twice, but outside of that, I mean Cooper Rush in the games that he started last year, I think he went 4-1.
Yeah.
Or like he had a pretty darn good record last year when he had to start and he was able to win football games for them. This year, I don't really necessarily think or know if Trey Lance will start. Most likely, it's probably on the no side. This year, if I'm Trey Lance, I'm just trying to gain as much of the playbook as I can and learn as much of the playbook as I can. But
But my,
going into
oh,
go ahead,
well,
go ahead,
but my question is like next year, will the Cowboys locker room, and you probably were about to touch on this, so sorry for cutting you off, but
go
next
ahead, bro.
year,
It's
will the
okay.
Cowboys locker room allow him to start? Because the Niners locker room didn't the first few years. Go ahead. My bad.
You're good. You're good. It's okay. But I mean, I could see it, right? But that's all. It's a hypothetical because it's all depending on how well Dak Prescott plays. Because
Yeah.
if they go bounce out in the first round or they lose to the Niners, they get in the divisional, and Dak Prescott throws another 2 interceptions. I mean, that's kind of 3 years where you've made it to the playoffs and you've had a good regular season, but time and time again, it's your quarterback that really hasn't played well and stepped up in the moment in the big game that you needed him to step up, right? And the playoffs is when it matters. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. You could go 17-0 in the regular season, but if you don't win that Super Bowl, if you don't get that ring, it doesn't matter, right? Like, at the end of the day, either you get it done, you win, or you don't, right? Like, and this might be a little bit, like, sound a little bit stupid, but I mean, just look at it, right? Every Super Bowl winner, like in the past like 10 years, you most of the time you remember the winner of that. You remember the winner of the Super Bowl. Obviously, if you the older you get, you might forget some of the like Super Bowl winners. But when you win the Super Bowl, you kind of go down in history, right? You go down in history. The Eagles won Super Bowl 47, or da 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 da. This team won. The Chiefs won last year's Super Bowl. But when you come in second or you come in third, 20 years from now, nobody's going to remember you came
Mm-hmm.
in second or you
Yeah.
remember third. I don't remember who the Niners lost to or the Cowboys lost to in the 1990 Super Bowl or whatever. Like, I don't remember that. But
Yeah.
do I remember that the Cowboys won the Super Bowl 20 years ago? Yeah, because that
Yeah.
goes down in history that the Cowboys won the Super Bowl or the Niners won the Super Bowl. Nobody remembers who came in second or who came in third, right? So, I mean, it's all up to Dak. If he performs well and he makes a deep playoff run, or the Cowboys do really well in the playoffs this year and they make it to the playoffs, I think Dak can get another year. But if Dak sucks it up and you obviously traded for Trey Lance and Trey Lance obviously continues to work and gets the grasp of this playbook and they decide to move off of Dak Prescott, I mean, Trey Lance would have a really good opportunity to go out and win that job. Now, obviously, with his teammates, right? Look at his teammates, for example, in Dallas. The difference I feel like with the Brock Purdy situation and the Niners situation is I don't really feel like it was a competition for quarterback one, right? Because Brock Purdy
Yeah.
solidified that spot. With the Cowboys, if you do hypothetically say, Dak, you're not good enough and you're taking up a chunk of our salary next year, we're going to move off you. We've already seen almost 5 years of you as our quarterback, we're not able to get it done with you under center, and we're not, and we have a stacked team. Like, they have a stacked defense. Micah Parsons, they have a really darn good team with good weapons, and C.D. Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks. Like, they have a darn good team. Tony Pollard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like Dak is in a team like Lamar and the Ravens where he doesn't have weapons, or he doesn't have a solid offensive line, or he doesn't have a good defense. Like, no, he has everything he needs to succeed. Now it's up to you, Dak, in order to go out and execute. And I think this is a big year for Dak. Either he goes out and shows up, or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, I think Trey Lance going into next year has a good shot, if they decide to move off of Dak Prescott, to give him the opportunity to be quarterback one and actually be the Cowboys starter, and to
Mm-hmm.
lead the Cowgirls, which obviously would suck. I mean, I would love to see it in a way, because I would love to see Trey Lance to get that opportunity. But if Trey Lance becomes what I think he will become, what I think you think he'll become, and what I think a lot of Niners fans thought that he will become, I mean, it'll be interesting for the 49ers down
Yeah.
the line, but only time will tell.
Well, and before we leave this, because we have been on this for a while, but I will say, because we need to move on to Kyle. Hey, you're not off the hook, Kyle. I'm looking at you. You're probably not watching, but I'm going to quickly touch on something. Mike McCarthy, we talk about Kyle, and he's a lot more set in his ways, and he does things old school like his dad used to do. Mike McCarthy, I don't think is necessarily like that. Like, I think he is the type of coach, because the biggest thing with Kyle is like he was never ready to trust Trey Lance. The players were never ready to trust Trey Lance, but mainly Kyle. Mike McCarthy did this 12 years ago with Aaron Rodgers or whatever, and Brett Favre. He was ready to move off of Brett Favre and move into it. He was open-minded, right? So I think Mike McCarthy is a lot more of that coach that is like, okay, yes, it's a newer quarterback, but we're gonna take a shot at him, even if our team is win now and he might not be win now. You know what I'm saying? So I think
That's
he's
a
a lot more
great point.
open-minded.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
He's been in the
Uh,
situation before, so he understands it.
exactly. Now, the one thing, I don't know, I've heard some interesting stuff about their new offensive coordinator. Apparently, he's not great. Kellen, whatever his name is, Moore, definitely doesn't help that they got rid of him. But that's the last time. So let's move on. But CarCast 49ers Talk says, yo, what's good? I still need to get you on. I will hit you up on Twitter. The Long John Podcast, shout out to my brother, says, let's go. Yeah. Thank you. So is this the last year of Kyle? This is kind of just a series of like a few different questions kept into one, but does Jed fire both Kyle and John? Is it like, does he fire the whole regime, or does he keep half of it? And what needs to happen for Kyle to keep his job? I'm going to quickly answer the John part. I think this is kind of an interesting spin. A lot of people, I feel like, would say, he fire both. But I think John Lynch keeps a professionalism to the organization that the Niners need. And so I'm going to actually say something different. I'm going to say John Lynch, if there were to be any firings, I think John Lynch stays.
Hit me with everything. I want to hear your opinion on everything. Go first on this one. I want to get
Okay.
your take
Well,
on it.
okay. So I think John Lynch stays. I think Kyle, he even admitted to it yesterday. It was Trey Lance's pick. So I think John Lynch stays, just kind of keep the professionalism, and you bring in a new. I honestly think the way that Kyle Shanahan keeps his job, you put all of your eggs into one basket. I was telling my brother this morning, you put all of your eggs into the Brock Purdy basket, and now it's go perform. Go perform with Brock Purdy, because if you don't, you just spent 3 years into Trey Lance. And the only reason why he still has his job now is because Brock Purdy worked out so well. But everyone's thinking, Brock Purdy's great, but he's only played 7 games. His limitations, I mean, he probably will be a pretty good quarterback, but his limitations are going to start showing. I mean, every quarterback has limits. He's not Patrick Mahomes. We know that. And so, I just think that it was honestly kind of a weird move by Kyle to put all of his eggs into one basket in a quarterback that is so unproven. I mean, you're really going all in, and you have no idea what is going to happen. So I think to be honest, I think the farthest that the Niners, I think NFC Championship, but I mean, we've been there the last 3 years, and this is the last team that this core of guys will be together. So I think it's Super Bowl. I honestly do think so. And there's a good chance, I mean, injuries could happen. We don't have as much depth on the offensive line. We don't have as much depth on the defensive line. We'll talk about that later. It's like, man, this is so, like, it's risky and stupid, honestly.
See, like in this scenario, obviously you're right. You put all your eggs in the basket of Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy, for the most part, even in yesterday's preseason game, has shown that he's been able to execute this offense, and he
Yeah.
does what Kyle wants him to do, right? And that's why Kyle loves him, right? Because he doesn't turn over the football, but whatever Kyle asks out of Brock Purdy's able to get it done. Like if you like, and he's accurate, he's good, he's great with the timing, he doesn't make mistakes, he's a quick processor. So in that sense, he loves Brock Purdy because Brock Purdy is basically, in a way, a better Jimmy Garoppolo who can do more things and who also makes less mistakes, who could also process things faster than Jimmy Garoppolo. So he loves Brock Purdy. My whole thing on this is I don't think John gets fired. I think obviously you have to make it to the NFC Championship game or have a deep playoff run with this team.
I think it's more than that because they've done that the last 2 years. They've achieved that.
I mean, obviously, Super Bowl's a must, right? You have to make it to the Super Bowl, right? But hypothetically speaking, even if you don't make it to the Super Bowl, I don't think neither get fired because here's my situation. Like, here's my insight. Here's why I look at it. Here's my perspective. John Harbaugh, he made it to a bunch of NFC Championship games. They even lost the Super Bowl. The only reason that Jed said, "Hey Jim, you're gone," is because he had issues with Jim personally, right? Him and Jim had issues. They always used to argue about the direction of the team, and because he disliked Jim Harbaugh, after Jim obviously had that one losing season and they were kind of going a little bit downhill a little bit, he was like, "All right, me and you already have issues. The team isn't really winning we're not winning anymore. You're gone. You're out of here." The difference with Kyle is that even with the trade, like you think any other manager or organization would be cool with you giving up 3 first-round picks and then trading the player for a fourth, and you couldn't develop him, and you gave up all those assets, and you look at what the Dolphins did. They got Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, and Jalen Waddle. Like, all 3 are studs. All 3 are superstars. So, I mean, any, like, other owner or management of the team would be like, you guys, screwed up. You guys are on a tight leash. With Shanahan and with Lynch, Lynch, I think, might be a little bit more disposable than Shanahan if one were to go. The difference is with Shanahan, if you were to fire Kyle Shanahan tomorrow, there would be a bunch of teams that would fire their head coach to go get Kyle Shanahan, right? It's just because Kyle Shanahan's just like this big name. Everybody loves him. Everybody thinks he's an offensive guru, offensive genius. So if you were to hypothetically go out and say, "Kyle, you're gone, you're fired," even if you don't make it to the Super Bowl, right? Which I think, obviously, playoffs, if you make it to the playoffs, it's acceptable. I think, obviously, as Niners fans, it would be like, okay, it would still hurt to lose in the playoffs. But just from Jed York's perspective, I don't think he would get rid of Kyle because if you were to fire Kyle, hypothetically, there would be a bunch of teams that would line up just to get an interview and to sign Kyle Shanahan as their next head coach. While I do think Shanahan isn't the best head coach, he's a great offensive coordinator. And for that reason, I feel like the Niners would be a little bit hesitant to get rid of Shanahan because of that Shanahan name, because he's popular, because he's known as in the league as this offensive genius. If you were to get rid of him, there'll be a bunch of teams calling to get Shanahan. The difference, like I said, with Harbaugh is Jed didn't like Harbaugh. They had issues. And he said, "You know what, we're getting rid of you. We have issues, and we're not winning." With Kyle, he lets Kyle do whatever. They have like a good relationship. So as long as they make the playoffs and he's putting, Jed isn't, and we know this about Jed, and you also know this about Jed.
Yeah.
Jed isn't a guy that's super focused on winning, right? Like if they win, cool.
Yeah.
Right now they're a winning team, but he's not like, we're going to put all their chips on the table and we're trying to win a Super Bowl. And like, obviously, Jed is the type of guy where I feel you win the Super Bowl, great. If you lose and you make it to the playoffs and we're successful and there's fans in the seats.
The fans are happy.
The fans are happy. I'm cool with that also. He's not Super Bowl or bust like, Eddie DeBartolo and the old management and the old regime. So as long as Kyle's making it to the playoffs and as long as they continue to have a good relationship, I don't think either of them really go. Kind of similarly with Andy Reid. Like Andy Reid is kind of an Shanahan, like him on the Eagles. Andy Reid on the Eagles, when they kept making it to the NFC Championship game and they had Donovan McNabb and they had the Eagles team and they kept losing. and they kept losing and losing. And then one year they made it to the Super Bowl, and they end up losing to Brady, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, after all those times of losing in the NFC Championship game, after almost 4 or 5 NFC Championship games, one Super Bowl appearance, one loss, the Eagles let him go, and he ended up going to the Chiefs. And same thing, they made it to the playoffs, kind of lost, and he ended up getting Mahomes. He ended up getting a superstar, and he ends up winning. Otherwise, Kyle Shanahan kind of does remind me of a young Andy Reid in the sense where he keeps making the NFC Championship game. He always loses, or something always happens. And even with his one Super Bowl appearance, they lost. But if you were to fire him, just like when they got rid of Andy Reid signed with the Chiefs, and now he's a Super Bowl champion after finding the right quarterback. If you were to do that with Shanahan, he would go to another team, and there would be teams lining up to sign him. So it would be tough. It would be hard. I think all he really has to do is make it to the playoffs this year and be successful. Obviously, for as a fan, it's Super Bowl or nothing, right? If you make it Super Bowl or bust. But just because Jed York likes Kyle, and obviously they have a good relationship, the fans are happy. They're making money every year. The stands are full. The Niners are a profitable football team. I don't think Jed really cares as long as they're successful to a certain extent, right? Like they make the playoffs and we're winning, and the fans are happy, and you're able to sell merchandise, make money. I don't really think Jed cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing is here's something that I just thought of. Maybe hire an offensive coordinator to say, I'm going to take a little bit of the drafting and decision-making responsibility off of your shoulders, because there is no offensive coordinator on the Niners. The Niners don't have one. And me personally, I mean, I guess we could get into this in the next topic, but Kyle Shanahan hasn't, I mean, assuming that he makes most of the decisions on the draft picks. The last 2 third-round picks, I mean, yikes. Last few years have been terrible third-round picks. And so my thing is bring in a guy who has historically been good at drafting and make him the offensive coordinator to take the decision-making off of Kyle. That man that I'm talking about is Schottenheimer off of the Seahawks. He's their offensive coordinator. What's his name? His name is Brian Schottenheimer. I've talked to a lot of Seahawks fans. They all love him. He was responsible, apparently, with the pick of Kenneth Walker, JSN. Like, really, he revived Geno Smith's career. Schottenheimer, I think, would be a guy you offer him enough money, and maybe he goes to the opposite team. I don't know. I just think in the division, but I just think that would be a man that he has a really good history of developing quarterbacks, drafting well, reviving quarterbacks' career. That's a guy that I think if the Niners were to keep Kyle, that would be a freaking amazing tandem.
Okay, like I don't mean to burst a bubble, but he's the Cowboys OC right now.
Oh, Schottenheimer? Really? That's who they draft.
That's who they picked, right? That's who they picked.
Okay, my bad.
Trey gets to have Brian Schottenheimer as his OC.
It said here that he was the Seahawks OC.
He was the Seahawks OC when Russ, and then after Russ left, they said,
it's Shane Waldron.
It's Shane Waldron from the Rams, and they had Shane Waldron. I mean, I feel like they signed Brian Schottenheimer because you look at what he did with Russ, right? And
that's my bad.
It's all good. It's all good. Like, I mean, Trey Lance gets to have Brian Schottenheimer as his offensive coordinator.
Wait, so it's Shane Waldron right now.
Yeah, Shane Waldron. But, like, I mean, even then, here's what I feel about it is that Kyle would never let that happen. Kyle is too, controlling. And
Shane Waldron has done good things. I mean, I think he
has also.
I mean, he did really well with Geno last year, so.
Kyle would not allow it. Kyle likes the guy that he can.
So this is a good segue then. If the 49ers were to get Kyle Shanahan, do they get more of a QB guru like Shane Waldron or a guy from college?
If they were to what Shanahan?
If you were to fire, my bad. If they were to fire, I don't know why. If they were to fire Kyle Shanahan, do they either get like a offensive genius like Kyle, or did they get a more of a QB guru as their head coach? I was talking about Lincoln Riley earlier on Grant Cohn's show. Like, yes, he doesn't have the most amazing defenses as he's been known for bad defenses in college football when he's head coach. Like Oklahoma Sooners had a terrible defense while Lincoln Riley was there. But you can't deny that Lincoln Riley has produced some of the best quarterbacks, or I mean Baker Mayfield, no, but Kyler Murray, he's produced like a good amount of quarterbacks who go to the NFL and seem to have success. So honestly, that would be a guy that like I would rather have a coach that is a quarterback guru and that drafts an elite quarterback and develops an elite quarterback. I would rather have a QB guru as your head coach and a really good quarterback and a mediocre defense than a really good defense and what we have now, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
I mean, I've never really thought about if the Niners would potentially fire Shanahan, but if I were to say who they would hire, I mean, I wouldn't mind a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who's an offensive guy,
Yeah.
right? Like an Eric Bieniemy. The thing about Jed is that I don't really trust Jed's decisions in hiring guys. Even the Kyle Shanahan pick, I think it was from his mom or like someone who's above him who
His
told
mom.
him, like someone told Jed, was like, yo, Jed,
His mom.
your last two picks as head coach, Jim Tom Sula and Chip Kelly, were straight doo doo. Like they were not it. You got to go and
Yeah.
listen to me and bring in Kyle Shanahan. So if Jed was entrusted to make that decision, I don't know who he would come up with if they were to fire Shanahan. But if they would, like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to bringing in a guy like Lincoln Riley with this team. Now, I just hope we wouldn't disassemble the defense. Like, I mean, I love this defensive core. This
Mm-hmm.
defense is good. So I would just hope he brings a good defensive coordinator in place. Um, I wouldn't mind a guy like Eric Bieniemy, right? Like a guy who's now at Washington who might be a head coach if the Washington offense, show some things, because he's always
Mm-hmm.
been, his name has always been attached to Andy Reid. But I wouldn't be opposed to a guy like Eric Bieniemy. I mean, well, it's obviously an interesting hypothetical. But whoever, if that scenario ever came to fruition, I would just hope Jed makes the right decision in bringing in a guy that can help this team win. Now, I've always believed there's two types of coaches in the league. There's the Shanahan
Mm-hmm.
type, right? And there's a type like a Dan Campbell who's not the who's not the strongest mind in terms of like X's and O's or scheme, but who's a guy that players are willing to run through a brick wall for, who players love playing for. There's guys like that, like the Dan Campbell's, the Robert Salas, and there's guys like the McDaniels, like the McVays, like the Shanahans, who are offensive gurus who can get the best out of their players. Not necessarily quarterback, but can use their players like the Debos and the Christian McCaffreys and can create mismatches and can use them in certain ways that can really fully highlight their skill set. So, I mean, whoever, if that scenario ever came to fruition, I would just hope Jed, or if John Lynch is even here, John Lynch is still there, and they fire Kyle.
Yeah.
Whoever they decide to bring in is just a guy that can, that's a good head coach, not no Chip Kelly, Jim Tom Sula
Yeah.
this team. I mean, yeah.
Another guy that I'm gonna throw out there is the head coach from Tennessee, Josh Heupel, and I don't know if the Niners. I don't see them getting anyone from college, but Josh Heupel developed. He brought and brought up what's his name, Hooker.
Hendon
Uh,
Hooker, yeah.
yeah, Hendon Hooker, who wasn't really much of a good quarterback, and then he transferred to Tennessee from Virginia Tech and just blew up. And he's had one of the top offenses from Tennessee. Both, I mean, really good play caller, I think. That's just my opinion. And then Joe Milton, one of the best quarterbacks right now or coming into college football this season. So Hupel, and to me, it's like with Lincoln Riley and Hupel, both of those guys are offensive and quarterback gurus. They haven't ever had a good reputation of defense. But here's the thing. I think the Niners defense is so much talent on it. And if Steve Wilkes is really what the Niners or what everyone expects him to be, like, I don't think hiring a head coach who, because Kyle's not that great. I mean, he's good at hiring defensive coordinators because he's hired Saleh and obviously promoted D'Amico Ryans. But like, I would rather just like stick with Steve Wilkes and Steve Wilks is really that good, I would rather stick with Steve Wilks and hire an offensive just guru, QB guru like those two guys than I don't know. I think the Niners defense has so much talent on it. I don't think there's gonna be much of a drop off if you hire more of an offensive coordinator. That's what I'm trying, or more of an offensive coach. That's what I'm trying to say.
Tommy, what's up, Tommy? Yeah, I
Yeah. We
don't.
need to say what's up to the chat because I have not for a while. Franchise says, "My guys, if you're still watching, thank you." Peo Time says, "Hey guys, for the record, Brian,
Brian,
Schottenheimer was the Rams OC back in the Jeff Fisher days. Haha. Yeah, I completely botched that. Not sure why, but shout out Josh Heupel, Tennessee head coach. Caltrix offered the highest pick. That's probably true. Which a 4th-round pick compared to 3 first-round picks is quite the drop off.
3
And
plus 20
and
plus
this
4.
is this is in the running for the worst trade in history because like I saw all these things a few months ago on Twitter about who the Dolphins got with those picks. And it was incredible, but I was like, well, Trey Lance could still work out. Now it's like, yeah, the 49ers literally
I mean, it doesn't
destroyed
matter. It doesn't
everything.
matter if Trey Lance works out because hypothetically, the team that made that trade is the Niners, and the Niners ended up getting rid of Trey Lance. So, like, even if Trey Lance becomes a superstar,
It's terrible.
it'll still be the worst trade because the player that you went out and got with that, pick, end up didn't working for you. So, what does Trey Lance ultimately go down as for the Niners? He ends up technically, if we're going by technicalities, he ends up going as a bust for the Niners. Like this trade is going down
Yeah.
as the worst trade like one of the worst trades, like with the Cowboys Herschel Walker trade. Like it's up there, like it's that bad. Tommy, I don't think Kyle's getting fired either. I think Kyle has a really long leash. I think he has a really good relationship with Jed York.
I don't know.
I don't think he's getting fired. Like I really don't. I don't think he's getting fired. I think as long as he makes the playoffs every year, and Jed York and Shanahan have this good relationship, they continue to have this good relationship. As long as they make the playoffs every year and they're successful, I don't really think Jed York is gonna go and fire Shanahan. Now, as a fan, for me and even Ben, it's Super Bowl or bust, right? You want to make it to the
Yeah.
Super Bowl every single year, but Shanahan has a long leash. I mean, and if you were to fire him, there would be a bunch of teams still lining up to go out and bring in Shanahan as their head coach or offensive coordinator. So he has a long leash. I don't think he's getting fired.
Wilkes brought in a scrub at nickel, strike one, buddy. Yeah, but I don't know, man. I think the Niners had a limited amount of cap space, and they said, here you go. We're going to give you this amount of money to spend on this position. And I mean, I don't think that was entirely Wilkes' fault. I think if he wanted to get somebody better, he could have. But the Niners didn't. I mean, as soon as the offseason started, or as soon as free agency started, they got Hargrave, and that was it. So, like, I don't think. I don't know. I don't know what you think on that, but I don't think it was completely Wilkes's like decision. You know?
I mean, I don't think it was his decision, but it was somewhat of his insight to say,
Yeah.
hey, I coached this guy in Atlanta or Carolina. I think it was Atlanta, and I think he would be a
Yeah.
good signing. Right now, I mean, he's been bad. Like
The play that sticks out to me was the Raiders. He got beat by some Raiders receiver who won't even make the team. And it was like a crosser, and the Raiders receiver scored a touchdown, and he got like absolutely burned.
And the funny thing is, they were talking about him being a starting nickel
Yeah.
cornerback for the Niners, and then Shanahan was like, "Wait up, he's not a starter. We wouldn't play him if he was our guaranteed starter." And
Yeah.
there's guys that are playing better than him right now: Samuel Womack, Quantrez Knight.
Yeah.
I mean, Ambry Thomas. I mean, as much as Ambry Thomas is he's whatever, I don't really care for him either. Ambry Thomas at least has had some nice plays in training in the preseason games. He's had that one run stop against the Broncos on 4th down. He's had some pass breakups, even though he's not great either. Like he hasn't been dominating in any of the preseason games. At least you could say he's had some highlights. Whereas Oliver, I don't know.
You know who I'm excited about? This is linebacker position, but McCrary Ball. He looks
He's
good.
nice. Yep.
He looks good. Jed Dork. Yes. Ambry is a decent backup. Not sure we can start him at OC outside cornerback.
You can't.
No.
You can't.
He's just too many mistakes.
He makes too many mistakes, and I don't really think it's necessarily even the games that he started, right? Like in the regular season when we made it to the Super Bowl run, we lost against the Rams.
He
It was
still was giving up big plays.
he was giving up big plays, but I don't necessarily think it was always a him getting just beat. It would just be when the quarterback would throw out the ball, his back would be turned, or he wouldn't like
Yeah.
necessarily when the ball was up in the air. His playmaking, I don't know how to like say, but his playmaking skills
We
weren't the greatest, and they would be called for pass interference, or he would he would get penalized a lot.
we
So I
always
mean, he's
we all
serviceable, but
we
as
all
a
want to talk
backup,
about we all want to talk about how he made that great interception on Odell Beckham to end it in overtime, week 18. Remember that?
that was yeah, but that
But
was
the thing
yeah.
is like I honestly think he got slightly lucky because his head was turned and it was underthrown and so yeah, I agree with you. I mean, coming into this offseason, we were saying, I mean, I think you were, I mean, I don't know if you would agree with me, but I mean, I'm not nickel. Cornerback was one of the deepest positions. We had brought in all these guys to compete, and now guys have gotten injured. Guys have gone down. Charvarius Ward has injury problems. It's like that's a concern as well. But
I love Demo. Tommy said Demo. I love Demo. Demo has been great. And the funny thing is, they
yeah,
started Ambry that year over De'Amaro Lenore, and I was like, "What the hell are you guys doing, Shanahan? Like, Ambry Thomas
yeah,
freaking sucks. Get him out the game." Like De'Amaro Lenore, at least in the games that he did play, like he was okay. He made some rookie mistakes, right? Like I think Sunday night against the Packers, he missed a play in the red zone. Like he made some mistakes just based off inexperience. But
hmm
I always felt like De'Amaro Lenore was better than Ambry Thomas, and it's funny how now De'Amaro Lenore is getting the opportunity, and now he's a starter for the 49ers. But that 2021 season, I thought De'Amaro Lenore was way better of an option than Ambry Thomas, yet they still decided to go with Ambry Thomas on the outside.
yeah. By the way, I forgot to ask you this: how long can you go for
I'm
as far as
chilling.
time wise?
I'm
Okay.
chilling.
Ben is out next. How much can how much can a fan take? Not much. My heart is broken. I actually love to have Demo at nickel. That would be elite. Yeah, he does have that skill set. Unfortunately, we need him at outside cornerback. Exactly.
I mean, you look at what the
Darnold.
Niners have missed on though. Like, I mean, DJ Reed now is a
Yeah,
Jets player. You look at
yeah.
Emmanuel Mosley, who tore his ACL, but he was also a
We should
baller.
have re-signed him. What the hell? I don't
I
know
don't think he wanted to
why.
come back because I think the Niners could have. I just don't think he wanted to come back to this team for some reason. But I mean, if the Niners really, I mean, I really think about it sometimes. Like, obviously, you can't hit on everything, but if the Niners ended up keeping some players they let go of, I think this team would be much better in some areas.
Yeah. Darnold chase no, he didn't. Road to 500 Hunsky for your channel. Yeah, everyone, if you haven't already, I'm going to be posting clips afterwards of this show, and then I'm hoping to get back to the kind of the routine of like once a week I'll do a Niners show and then once a week an NFL show like I did last year. And yeah, go subscribe, guys. I'm definitely I'm so close. I'm so close. And actually at 500 you start to get like perks for your channel like monetization and stuff like that. So that's for definitely for sure. Nice for sure. It's almost like cuz it used to be only 1000 where you got money and I don't do it for the money. I do it for fun. But it used to be 1000 and now they lowered it to 500. You can get like super chats and stuff. So that's super cool. But I don't really look at that all the time because I do it for fun. And the people I have met in the business, including you, in the business of this whole content creation, has been really, really cool. But yeah, he says I miss Mosley for sure. Well, so we were talking about kind of the depth of this team and how much, you know, how what the depth is going to look like on the defense, and the Niners potentially, could have re-signed Mosley. They have not as much depth at the corner position. They might need to. I mean, we were all saying Jimmy Ward. We should have kept him. The safety. I mean, I think this is all like our defense is still going to be good, and I think a lot of this is just us. I think the Trey Lance whole as far as the depth goes, I think the whole Trey Lance situation made us panic about the rest of the team. And so I think our team is still going to be really good. And yes, there are concerns, but some of the concerns I think are just like, I don't know. I think we'll figure it out. But Bosa is still not the main concern that I think is a real concern because some are fake. I think the safety position concern is a fake. I think the cornerback position could be or not could be, but this is a real concern. Bosa is still not signed. Does it go past week 1? We've heard rumors about that. And what are the odds the Niners beat? Not best. What are the odds the Niners beat the Steelers week 1 without him? I would say the odds are very, like, the Steelers are a sleepy team, but go ahead.
I mean, I think the Niners beat the Steelers. I don't think the Niners should sleep on the Steelers because the Steelers are still a team that is a sleeper to make the playoffs this year, and they also play really darn good week 1. I mean, they blew the brakes off the
Yeah.
Bengals last year in week 1, completely obliterated them. So they come out hot. Week 1, I mean, Mike Tomlin has his team ready to go. They're all amped up. So don't sleep on the Steelers. It's not an easy game. It's not just a W automatically for the Niners, especially considering that you don't have Nick Bosa. I still think the Niners are a good enough team to win without Nick Bosa and to get a win week 1.
Yeah.
I think the Bosa scenario, I think it has a possibility of going past week 1. They haven't had much communication, but I mean, you got to have him back before week 2. Like, you're playing the Rams. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a rivalry game. It's a divisional game. Like, you got to bring him back at a certain point. I think they're going to get it done eventually. And as much as this Trey Lance situation sucks, I think it kind of helps in a way because now you have more cap space to go out and give more money to Nick Bosa and to bring him back. So you have a little bit more space, and wiggle room to go out and bring back Nick Bosa. But you have to re-sign Nick Bosa. At a certain point, I mean, you look at the difference of when Nick Bosa isn't on that D-line compared to when Nick Bosa is on that D-line. And Cleveland Farrell, I thought, is a good signing, but he's nowhere near the level of Nick
Yeah.
Bosa. Like, he's nowhere on Nick Bosa's caliber or level, so you have to bring back Nick Bosa. Whether that's week 1, whether that's week 2, like, you have to bring him back. The sooner the better. But I think the Niners can definitely get a win week 1 without Nick Bosa. I think they're a good enough team, but bring back Nick Bosa. Just do it, John. Like, I
I
mean, you're going to do it anyways. You're going to
I
do it
think
anyways.
I think they would. I think the offensive line for the Steelers is not good. And it always never had. But the talent on the Steelers, now that's a different story. Because I mean, they have George Pickens, they have the other dude, the other receiver, what's his name? Number 18.
Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, they have, and then Kenny Pickett looks good. They have obviously Najee Harris. Like, I wouldn't sleep on them. I do think that we would beat them because the matchup between the Steelers and the Niners, like, the Steelers have a terrible offensive line, and Cleveland Farrell, like, he's kind of been overlooked a lot in the preseason, but he had a really good play against the Raiders where he had like a hand swipe and then got a sack. Like, I think he's definitely played his way onto a starting for a starting job on the Niners, but I do think that it would be really close because, I mean, they have TJ Watt, who, man, I am scared to see that matchup. TJ, this is kind of like a preview because, I mean, we're coming up on week 1, but this is a preview to the game. I'm scared to see TJ Watt versus Colton McKivitz. I mean, I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm going to be shaking the whole game. So, I would say it would be close. I'd still pick the Niners, but man, oh man, the real concern is, like, where's the depth in the middle, defensive tackle? That's my only thing is, like, Kalia Davis needs to stay healthy. It's a big question mark, the defensive line for sure. So the chat is going crazy right now. Let me check it all out. I don't know if it's good or bad. Of all the teams, was Dallas even on the radar to be traded to? I am shocked. Yeah, man, me too. I was like, Dallas? Breaking news, my San Francisco are horrible. I'm not. I don't know if I should. Nah, I'm not gonna do anything. Well, Ben, I think you have some great skills at this. Amin, also keep at it, young man. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate
Um,
it, Tommy.
Please get JJ on your stream. He is a young Vikings content creator around your age. Should send you his channel. Yeah, please do. I'm trying to look for Vikings content creators. It's like one thing I'm very thankful about is, like, the Niners fan base, content creators. There's so many to choose from. And that's why I think Grant is such, like, an instrumental person, because he's, like, started so many, like, he's inspired so many people. But, like, you look around the NFL at different content creators or, like, at different organizations and their content creator, and it's like slim pickings, you know? And so I'm blessed to be a Niners fan in that circle. Let's also point out that the backups are just horrible. Tommy Huxley says we are now the Lambs top heavy. Shaking my head. Yeah, we need to sign Bosa now, immediately. George Pickens versus Ward is going to be super fun. Yeah, that is going to be a fun matchup. Says franchise. Shout out to Manny. Great content creator, does Eagles stuff. Also on Gridiron, East Coast Gridiron. So go check out their channel. Watt is going to make Colton female. Oh my god. You know, Amin hair is perfect. You can't take your eyes off of it.
I don't know if that's sarcasm because right now my hair is like a mess. Right now, I'm not gonna lie. It's a little bit messy, but I'll take it. I appreciate it.
Honestly, he liked when I had my glasses. I hate myself with glasses. I have contacts in right now. I will never wear glasses ever on a stream again. I hate glasses so much.
I mean, I feel you because I have glasses also, and I was like, I thought about wearing them one time on stream. I was like, maybe it might. I was like, no. Like, I put them on for like 10 seconds. I was like, nah, these gotta go. Like, nah,
Do you wear contacts too?
nah. I've always thought about it, but like, I'm always scared that like they're gonna get stuck in my eyes. I can't get them out, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna like, yeah.
Wait, so you don't need glasses or do you
I
just
mean,
wear them?
I use glasses because I can't see things that are far away. I don't know what that's called.
Yeah, me too.
Nearsightedness,
It's
farsightedness.
I think it's nearsighted.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like it's the opposite. Like you can't see things from far away, but they call it nearsighted. So I can't really see things from far away. So I
Mhm.
usually wear my glasses like if I'm in school or doing something. But for streaming, I don't really wear them, and they kind of look kind of goofy on me on stream.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Um, great great hair, unlike Boldy. Me. Yeah. Hey,
Hey man, I mean,
he's
I
got a
got love.
few. Tommy's got a few years on you though.
I mean, but Tommy can play the guitar. Like I can't play the guitar like Tommy. I don't think any Niner content creator you could put them all together. I don't think they could play as good as Tommy
Yeah.
with the guitar in his hands. Like I've seen some videos of Tommy playing the guitar. Like, I mean, you might not got the hair, but you can definitely kill the guitar, man. You could kill the guitar.
Warner versus Najee. Yeah. Will you do a 49ers projected 53-man roster? I decided to hold it off. I was considering doing it today, but we had too much to talk about. The 53-man roster is coming out next week, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe, yeah.
probably next week.
I don't know. Maybe I'll try to get a show in before then. Contacts gotta hurt. Yeah, sometimes when they're getting a little bit older, like when they get a little bit more deteriorated and they start, because I use like disposable contacts or whatever that last a month or whatever. Towards the end of that month cycle, oh my gosh, it's so bad. Yeah, so guys, have a good show. Franchise says send Bosa to Philly. We'll give you Reddick.
We're good. We're good. We're good.
I mean, Reddick's good and all, but and here's another thing before we get off of the Bosa talk and before we get out of here, I will say that I forgot to say this, but Nick Bosa, I saw something on Twitter and they said he's not getting signed before Chris Jones. I agree with that. Chris Jones, I think, I think he said something, or the Chief said something. Maybe it was him who said, I can hold out until the deadline. So if that's the case, if Nick Bosa really doesn't get signed before Chris Jones and Chris Jones holds out towards the deadline, the Niners just have to say, here, Nick Bosa, here's a $40 million check per year.
Nick Bosa is getting re-signed before Chris Jones.
Yeah. Wait, really? Okay.
Nick Bosa is getting re-signed before Chris Jones. Chris Jones doesn't really care. Like, I don't think Andy Reid wants to give him the money. I don't think Andy Reid really
He's
cares.
older too.
He's on the older side. Chris Jones is really darn good. Like, he's a phenomenal player, but I don't really think what Chris Jones wants and what Andy Reid is probably willing to give up for him, or they might not be able to because money-wise, I don't really think so.
Franchise says it right here.
Yeah, right? Whereas Nick Bosa, on the other hand, I think you have to re-sign him. And you can re-sign him. It's just a matter of coming to the conclusion of what Bosa wants. Hey, Bosa, you want, what, $40 million, whatever you want. It's just about meeting, with an agreement. I think they'll get it done. Chris Jones seems like he does not give a crap. Like, Chris Jones seems like, I don't care. I don't really
even said it. I'll wait.
Yeah, I'll wait till week 8. I don't really care. Whereas Nick Bosa, you haven't heard nothing from him, but you already darn know well
he loves to win,
that he wants to play and he wants to get back out there with the boys. The boys want him back out there, and John Lynch wants to get him on the field as soon as he can. because he's a huge instrumental part of why we win football games. So I
We
think he
still have
gets it
2
done
weeks
before.
till the regular season too, so
Yeah.
yeah. Well, everyone, go obviously his Twitter and his YouTube is in the description. Do you have, because we need chat, start a riot. We all need to say Amin needs to get back on YouTube. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know you're a busy man and I am too. I have struggles sometimes putting out content as well. So promote yourself a little bit. Where can they find you before we get out of here?
Mean the Dream 13 on Twitter, or not even Twitter. I keep saying Twitter. Mean the Dream 13 on X, whatever the
Yeah,
hell.
yeah.
I mean the Dream 13 on
But
X. You guys can follow me down on X, okay?
the
If you
weird
guys
thing
have X.
is
Sounds
when
so
you
weird. Oh,
yeah, you know when the what is it, the link or whatever pops up, it still says, like, when you go to share the link on a computer, it still says twitter.com/x or something. Have you noticed that?
yeah. I did that. Earlier when I wanted to log on to the stream, I
Yeah.
just clicked Twitter and it automatically popped up. But X, damn. Ugh.
It's yeah. Elon, you're wiling, bro.
I don't know.
Um,
I don't know what he's doing with the app. I don't really
yeah.
care, but yeah.
Taco was released. Yeah, he was injured.
I mean, he was injured. He was bound to get released. I think even Cameron Latu, he hurt himself. He's probably gonna get released also.
Yeah, get this man off the team. And Jake Moody, oh my gosh, the biggest waste of
Isn't
the
he?
third round.
Isn't he your kicker from Michigan? Like, aren't you a
Yeah,
Jake
he
Moody
was good
fan?
at Michigan though. He's not good for us. Man, he was good at Michigan, like really good. Man,
We'll see. He still got time. He still got
yeah, he's
time.
still got time, I guess. I
But I already
guess.
know, man. If he misses one kick in a crucial moment, Robbie Gould is gonna be sitting on his couch laughing like, "Y'all
Yeah,
didn't even call me. Y'all didn't call me."
that's facts. And the fact is that they like literally missed on so many guys that I wanted them to pick. I wanted them to
I
pick
wanted
the
Dewan
guy,
Jones. I wanted Dewan
Juwan
Jones to
Jones,
Brown.
Caleb Freeland, all right. But also there was a guy, his name, he went to the Steelers in the beginning of the 4th round right afterwards. His name is Saladevry from Old Dominion. He was another guy that I really wanted them to get. He would have been good right tackle depth. But anyways, guys, I'll see you probably later on this week for an NFL show, possibly with a guest. I'm not sure yet. It most likely this week is going to be on Wednesday, the show. So we'll see you guys again later on this week, and go Niners. And hopefully everything works out amidst all the drama. It's never a dull time in Niners Nation, baby. Go Niners.
Go Niners.